Good evening, good evening. Can you hear me? No? Is this on? Is this on? I'll project, Judy. So welcome, my name is Tony Marks, and I'm the president of New York Public Library, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all here. We have a great crowd. I'm going to do something I never do. I'm going to do a shout out for one particular person I'm delighted has joined us tonight. Inducted into the Folk Americana Roots Hall of Fame just on Tuesday in Boston. Please join me in welcoming Judy Collins. Tonight, we are so fortunate not only to have Judy with us, but to partner with our friends at the Theater for a New Audience in a conversation about a play that has continued to fire our imaginations for 400 years. Of course, I'm speaking about Hamlet, and in particular, the remarkable new reimagining that is currently being staged at TFANA, directed by Chela De Ferrari and presented by her theater company, Peru's Teatro La Plaza. Chela intertwines in this production the text of Shakespeare's tragedy with the lived experiences of 8 young actors with Down syndrome. It's filled with humor, with energy, and a lot of music. And of course, as in all things Hamlet, the timeless themes of grief, revenge, and existence. Chela will be speaking tonight with one of our greatest living Shakespeare scholars, Ayanna Thompson, who is the Regents Professor of English at Arizona State University, the Executive Director of the Arizona Center for Medieval and Renaissance Studies, a member of the Board of Trustees of the Royal Shakespeare Company, and a Shakespeare Scholar in Residence at the Public Theater in New York. And if you want to learn more about either of our guests tonight, you've got printed programs at your seat. Tonight's program is presented in honor of the great late, so sadly, Leonard Polonsky. Leonard was an astonishing and visionary thinker, philanthropist, and friend to TFANA and to the library, where he, together with Georgette, his wife, envisioned and made possible the amazing Treasures exhibit that is upstairs and on permanent display for now almost 5 million visitors and counting. If you haven't had a chance to visit the Polonsky Treasures exhibit, you should. Come any day that we're open, which is almost every day. You'll find any number of our treasures drawn from our 6 copies of Shakespeare's first folio, as well as 24 separate contemporary printings of the individual plays, and even a couple possible forgeries. We collect everything. Many of those have already appeared in the treasures, and you'll see that and so much more. So we couldn't be prouder to explore the continuing relevance of Shakespeare's incredible work that continues to captivate audiences and scholars alike. At the end of the conversation, Chela and Ayanna will be glad to take some of your questions. You can write them down on the little note cards that you got as you walked in. My colleagues will come by and collect them from you. Tonight's event is part of our Live from NYPL series, which is made possible by the continuing generosity of Celeste Bartos, Manaz Isbahani Bartos, and Adam Bartos, and of course, by all of you and all New Yorkers who love the New York Public Library. Please join me in welcoming Ayanna Thompson and Chela De Ferrari.
Thank you all for being here. This is a really special occasion. we are also joined by Sebastian, who will be translating for Chela, who, although she speaks perfect English, prefers to answer fulsomely in her native Spanish. We're going to watch a short video. I do want to put in a plug that the production of Hamlet from La Plaza is on through April 4th, and if you have not seen it, it is truly one of the best Hamlets I've ever seen. And that is not to say... And I've seen a lot of Hamlets. It's worthwhile. It is just one of the smartest adaptations around. Okay, so we'll watch our little video and then we'll get into our conversation.
¿No es increíble que un actor sea capaz de transformar su rostro? Derramar lágrimas, cambiar la voz y acomodar sus acciones a la historia que quiere expresar. Quisiera ser capaz de hablar y hacerme entender. Y sin embargo yo estoy aquí, tartamudeando, llenando el vacío con mis palabras. 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 ¿Es esto valentía? Desahogar el corazón con palabras como si fuera un niño. ¿Crees que puedes tocarme como si fuera una flauta?
Soy Gertrudis, madre de Hamlet.
Nada merece un hombre contra quien se comete el más atroz de los delitos, al despojarlo del derecho a existir.
¡De mi camino!
Quizás sea este nuestro último recurso, el teatro. Representaremos nuestra historia lo mejor que podamos. Observaré sus miradas. Si se estremecen, será porque la culpa los agita. O quizás sea porque logramos disolver el velo de la ignorancia que hoy cubre sus ojos.
I have my questions on my phone. I'm not being weird and texting other people. I'm live tweeting. No. Chela, can you tell us about your theater company and your relationship with Shakespeare in general? What other Shakespeare plays have you produced? And then what other adaptations do you admire most and why?
¿Puedes contarnos un poco sobre tu compañía teatral, Teatro La Plaza, sobre tu relación con Shakespeare, qué otras obras de Shakespeare has dirigido y qué adaptaciones de Shakespeare has admirado en el pasado o en el presente?
Ante todo, buenas noches. Es un verdadero honor estar aquí. Tengo que agradecer en primer lugar a TFANA por esta invitación, a Aaron, Jeffrey. Se ha convertido en uno de mis teatros favoritos del mundo a partir de haber conocido a las personas que trabajan en esta impresionante institución.
Chela begins thanking TFANA for hosting the play, the show, and shares that the team is extraordinary and TFANA has become one of her favorite theaters in the whole world because of this experience.
Teatro La Plaza es una organización sin fines de lucro que nace hace 23 años y que nació en tiempos muy difíciles y nos enfocamos en conectarnos con el mundo en ese momento. Tú me vas diciendo ahí.
Teatro La Plaza was born 23 years ago. It's a not-for-profit theater in Peru, and it was born in a very difficult moment for the country. 23 years ago was 2003?
Sí.
It was 3 years after the end of the dictatorship of Alberto Fujimori.
Y buscábamos conectarnos con el mundo. Era un país cerrado en ese momento. Tuvimos la suerte de hacer conexiones, tener dramaturgia que venía de fuera y muy poca dramaturgia peruana, no la que deseábamos.
The first impulse when they created Teatro La Plaza was to connect Peru with the world, because the country was very closed and very disconnected to the rest of the world. So the idea was to produce plays from different countries, from different playwrights, and they were very lucky to have access to fantastic plays and being able to produce them in Peru, in translation.
Pronto nos dimos cuenta de que necesitábamos teatro nuestro, nuestras historias, teatro peruano, y creamos Sala de Parto.
In the beginning, they did not had enough Peruvian playwriting, so that was something that they felt that it was missing. So they created the program Sala de Parto, which translates as delivery room, to foster the development of Peruvian playwrights.
Y así nacieron muchísimas obras y autores peruanos, y ahora nos enfocamos, en Sala de Parto se enfoca sobre todo en dramaturgia de mujeres y actores, actrices de género disidente.
Sorry. So Sala de Parto was this program that I was telling you about. It grew over the years, and right now is focusing on developing the work of female playwrights and playwrights who have who are genderqueer, who are genderqueer. And this is a program that has fostered the careers of many playwrights over the years.
Tenemos un área de investigación que en los últimos años se ha encargado de trabajar sobre salud mental. También tenemos un área de formación, una pequeña escuela. Hemos hecho teatro para niños desde que nació, Teatro La Plaza, niños y adolescentes.
Teatro para bebés también, ¿cierto?
Y empezamos con teatros para bebés, que fuimos pioneros en eso. Sí.
So Teatro La Plaza has a research department, has an education department, and they prioritize as well the production of theater for younger audiences, including theater for babies. That is something that they have been developing in the last years.
Mi primer contacto con Shakespeare lo viví a los 9 años. A los 9 años, por alguna razón, me interesaba escribir obras de teatro y dirigirlas. Y dirigía a mis hermanas y a mis vecinas.
Chela discovered Shakespeare when she was 9 years old, and she enjoyed very much writing and directing plays at that age. So she started directing her family members, her neighbors, her brothers and sisters.
Y escribía las obras, pero una de ellas se llamó Romeo y Julieta.
She wrote the plays, but one of them was called Romeo and Juliet.
Mi abuela me había contado la historia y me había impactado profundamente su final.
Her grandmother told her the story, and she was very impacted by the ending of it.
Y eso fue lo que se reprodujo en una de las presentaciones que hacíamos a la familia, cuando había reuniones, podía ser Navidad o el cumpleaños de alguien.
So in the family gatherings like Christmas or somebody's birthday, they would gather and they would present the plays until one of these plays was Romeo and Juliet.
Lo que recuerdo con más profundidad de lo que pasaba ahí es que el poder que me daba el convocar a toda mi familia que estaba desordenada conversando, y de pronto mi madre decía, ahora vamos a ver la obra de Chelita. Y
So everybody in the family was in different groups, talking, doing what families do. But Chela felt very powerful in this moment where her mom would say, everybody please gather to see Chelita's play.
Y de pronto ese pequeño auditorio se volvía una familia.
And suddenly that small auditorium became a family.
Y cada tanto recuerdo esa sensación cuando va a empezar la obra, es ese momento de tener el poder de congregar a gente por una obra de teatro.
And this moment before the show starts is this moment that it's so powerful where everybody has been gathered in order to watch a show.
De todas las obras que presenté, Romeo y Julieta fue la más exitosa.
From all the plays she produced
A
at
los
9,
9 años. Sí.
Romeo and Juliet was the most successful.
Luego, yo soy víctima de un colegio de monjas,
She's the victim of religious school, Catholic school.
pero tuve una profesora que le llamábamos la Nevenka.
¿Cómo?
La Nevenka, era su nombre. Sí,
She
Nevenka.
had one teacher that was called La Devenka.
La Nevenka.
Who was a nun.
No,
No,
she was not
she
a
was
nun.
not the nun.
She was not a
Yes. She was an English teacher. Era una profesora de literatura inglesa. Y ella nos hizo leer Macbeth.
So La Devenka assigned Macbeth as a reading for her class.
Y yo tenía 13 años, más o menos, y no podía creer que alguien pudiera escribir algo así.
She was 13 and she could not believe that somebody was able to write something like that.
Y que imaginado durante noches cómo se vería eso en un teatro.
So she imagined at night how would that look in a theater.
Esos son mis primeros acercamientos a Shakespeare.
Those are her first approaches to Shakespeare.
Muy bien. Can you talk us through, because I know there was a long development process, and for those of you who don't know, the cast is comprised of 8 actors, yes, 8, and they all have Down syndrome. And you developed this production of Hamlet with them as co-creators. So can you talk about what was the impetus for the project, and then how you actually, what was the process for the development of the show?
Si nos puedes contar un poco el proceso de desarrollo, el proceso de investigación, porque los actores son co-creadores. Entonces, ¿cómo fue este proceso para crear Hamlet y cuál fue el impulso para comenzar?
Uno de los actores de la obra, Jaime Cruz, trabajaba en el Teatro La Plaza como acomodador. Llevaba unos años trabajando, vendiendo programas.
One of the actors in Hamlet is Jaime Cruz. Jaime was working at La Plaza before the show as an usher, and his job was to guide people to in the auditorium and sell programs.
Normalmente cuando viene un nuevo elenco a la plaza, todo el equipo, como hacen en TFANA, se presenta al nuevo elenco.
Every time there's a new show at La Plaza, the whole team, the whole theater crew introduces themselves to the new cast.
En esa oportunidad, Jaime Cruz no se presentó como lo hacía siempre, soy Jaime Cruz, soy el acomodador, sino soy Jaime Cruz, soy actor.
In this specific time, Jaime did not introduce himself as an usher, as he usually did, but he said, my name is Jaime Cruz and I'm an actor.
Esto llamó mi atención y lo invité a tomar un café.
That caught Chela's attention, so she invited him to have a coffee.
Fue un largo y emocionante café.
It was a long and exciting coffee.
Por alguna razón, en algún momento, y siempre cuento esto porque fue así, lo imaginé con la corona del príncipe.
She always tells this story because this is how it happened. In one moment in this conversation, she imagined Jaime with the crown of the prince.
Yo venía buscando hacer Hamlet. Había hecho otras obras de Shakespeare y Hamlet estaba, por supuesto, en mi mira.
Chela had done some Shakespeare plays before. She didn't say this, but I will add it. She directed an extraordinary version of Much Ado About Nothing that I've seen many times. And she wanted to do Hamlet, but she couldn't find the right actor.
Estaba buscando al actor equivocado, a ese actor tradicional, brillante, virtuoso, de todas las características que buscamos cuando vamos a elegir al actor que va a hacer Hamlet.
She was looking for the wrong actor. She was looking for an actor that was extraordinary, that had the capacity to carry the show, and that's not the person that she needed. The person that you immediately think when you think of somebody to play Hamlet, that was a wrong call.
Eso sentí al ver a Jaime. Entonces sentí que el que Jaime pudiera hacer de Hamlet iba a darle una nueva lectura a la famosa obra que hemos escuchado tantas veces, Al ser o no ser. De pronto pensé, vamos a escucharlo de otra manera.
In this encounter, she realized that having Jaime play Hamlet would give a new meaning to the lines that we all know, that we have repeated so many times, the to be or not to be. All of these words would have a very different ring with an actor like Jaime on stage.
Primero pensé que Jaime iba a ser el actor que hacía Hamlet y que el resto de los personajes lo harían otros actores neurotípicos.
Her first impulse was to cast Jaime as Hamlet, and the rest of the play would be played by neurotypical actors.
Pero luego pensé que podíamos correr algunos riesgos. Por ejemplo, que los demás miembros de la compañía terminaran guiando a Jaime y no al revés.
But that presented many risks. One of the biggest one was that she was worried that the rest of the company would end up guiding Jaime and not the other way around.
Y pensé que había que apretar el acelerador a fondo y buscar a 8 actores neurodivergentes.
So she decided to go all in and find 8 actors who are not neurodiverse.
Y realizamos un casting. En este casting buscábamos a 8 actores, se presentaron 24, y lo que queríamos era acoger a la total diversidad de... ¿cómo se dice? Lo que buscábamos era acoger eso que normalmente en un casting tradicional se rechaza. Un actor que se le entiende, es algo mínimo que buscamos en un casting, un actor que no se queda en blanco, que no tartamudea, y era muy interesante en este casting ya empezar a sentir la belleza y la posibilidad de otras formas de representación al tomar estos actores.
They organized an audition. They were seeking 8 actors. So 24 went to the audition, and the way they framed this experience was different as you usually would imagine an audition. When you do this, you usually look for actors who are quote-unquote good. Actors who will remember their lines, who will never blank on stage, who won't stutter, who would perform in the way that we imagine a good performance. So they were not looking for that. They were seeking to embrace a way of performing that did not respond to this ideal. So they embraced the stuttering, they embraced the difficulties with the speech. One thing that Chela said was, the basic requirement for an actor is that you need to understand what they are saying. this was not a requirement in this specific audition process.
Pero sí había otra condición, que los actores entendieran a dónde estaban entrando, ¿no? Que entendieran el propósito de la obra y cómo se iba a dar.
But there was one requirement that was non-negotiable. They needed that the actors were very aware of the characteristics of this process, and I will add, they needed co-creators. So they needed actors that were willing to commit to a long-term project and who were able to bring their creative capacities to the process, not only learn their lines, but also create their lines.
El trabajo de investigación tomó entre 6 y 8 meses. Nos enfocamos en dos aspectos. Uno, el estudio, por mi lado, un estudio de Hamlet, y por otro lado, el estudio de la condición de síndrome de Down.
Chela began a research process that lasted between 6 and 8 months that focused on Hamlet as a piece and the characteristics of Down syndrome.
Antes de empezar ensayo, todo esto antes de empezar
Before
ensayo.
rehearsals began.
Jaime Cruz fue mi guía durante este proceso, durante estos meses. Él, que era el que sabía, era el autorizado, me presentó a la sociedad síndrome de Down, a la familia, los amigos y a quien después formó parte del equipo de dirección.
So Jaime was the guide in this process because he had the knowledge. He's the person with the authorized knowledge of his own condition and his own community. So he took the lead in this process. He took Chela to the Peruvian Society of People with Down Syndrome, and he introduced Chela to Jonathan, right? Jonathan Oliveros, who was one of the associate directors of the process.
Empezamos ensayos que tomaron un año de trabajo.
Rehearsals took a year.
Fue un lujo poder tomarnos un año. Es como hay que patear el tablero de la producción cuando se hace una obra donde uno le pide a un teatro, déjame ensayar durante un año, con actores que están pagados, por supuesto.
It was a luxury to be able to do this because most theaters would say no to a process that lasts so long because it brings a series of production requirements, and of course the actors were compensated for their labor. So the logistic and financial requirements of a one-year rehearsal process were very big, were very high, but they managed to have them.
Para mí fue fascinante porque amo los procesos largos y porque yo tengo un ritmo muy parecido al de los actores y actrices.
This was great for Chela because she loves long processes of creation and because she says that her rhythm, her work rhythm is very similar to the one of the performers of this play.
Incluso su sentido del humor es muy parecido. Son los únicos que se ríen de mis chistes.
The actors share Chela's sense of humor. They are the only people who laugh at her jokes.
Toda la primera etapa nos dedicamos a conocernos y a construir confianza.
The first part of the process was devoted to get to know each other, and to create trust between the team.
Y luego, bueno, poco a poco fuimos dándoles herramientas, ideas, y ellos nos daban otras que generalmente eran mejores.
The leading team was offering tools and ideas and resources, and the actors respond and offer different tools and ideas and resources that were usually better than the ones they received.
Cada uno se hizo especialista en un personaje y traía el fruto de sus investigaciones a todo el grupo. Y era a través de, sugeríamos cosas como cómo bailaría su personaje, si quisiera cantar, qué canción elegiría, dibujaban, rapeaban, escribían cartas de amor.
Each actor became specialized in one of the characters of the play. So each one did their own research on their character, and then the prompt that they received was, how would your character sing? How would your character dance? What would you draw that brings your character to life? So everybody would do their research, everybody would develop their own work, and then we'll share it with the rest of the team.
A veces no sabíamos, el equipo, quién estaba hablando. Por ejemplo, si Ximena estaba hablando como Ofelia o como ella. Los bordes se mezclaban.
The borders between the character and the actor started to get blurry. And sometimes during rehearsal, it was not clear who was talking, if it was Ximena playing Ophelia, or if it was Ximena herself, or if it was Ophelia. So there was this process of compenetration between actor and character.
Y más de una vez les preguntaba, ¿y quién está hablando? ¿Ximena o Ofelia? Y ella, después de pensar un rato, me decía, las dos.
Many times Chela asked, who's speaking right now? Is it Ximena or is it Ophelia? And Ximena would think about it and would say both of us.
La elección de los personajes a veces venía del equipo de dirección y otras veces de sus propios intereses, deseos, impronta.
The election of each character, the choosing of each character sometimes would be inspired by the directing team, and sometimes it would come from the actors themselves and their desires, their interests, their explorations.
Por ejemplo, Manuel hablaba mucho de su madre, como una mujer que amaba, la ama por supuesto, pero también que era una Polonia. Y lo que nos decía es que a veces él no podía decirle realmente lo que pensaba porque tenía un poco de temor a ser juzgado, ¿no?
Manuel, one of the actors, was talking about his mom, and he loves his mom very much, of course, but also there are things that he was not confident telling her. So Chela says that he saw her as a kind of Polonia, as female Polonias, and he used this space to elaborate things that he was not able to tell her in real life.
Le dimos la escena en la que Hamlet está con su madre en el cuarto y que le dice cosas muy fuertes. Y pensando que quizá esto podía ayudarlo, uno, a construir su personaje y, por otro lado, también liberar algunas cuestiones que él sentía.
So the directing team gave Manuel the scene in which the discussion with
Con la madre.
Con la madre, con
donde le dice
Gertrudis.
Sí.
Sí. The scene where Hamlet confronts Gertrude, that it's a very heavy scene with very heavy language. So they give it to him because they hoped that this Manuel would have something to say about all of this and would allow him to liberate some tensions that he was not able to channel outside of the stage.
Le costó mucho, él decía que él era una persona muy educada y que no podía decir palabras tan duras.
It was very hard because he said he was a very polite person who could not say such harsh words.
Ahora disfruta inmensamente haciendo esa escena.
Now that he finds a lot of pleasure playing that specific scene.
Luego pidió ser un padre. Me dijo en un momento de mucha lucidez y de introspección que probablemente nunca podría ser un padre y que quería hacerlo a través del teatro.
In another moment, Manuel told Chela, in a moment of a lot of lucidity and introspection, that he wanted to play a father character because he probably would never be a father in real life. So he asked Chela to use theater as a way to fulfill these.
Y se convirtió en Polonio. Los que han visto la obra probablemente recuerdan la escena donde él le da los consejos a su hija, en nuestra versión a Ofelia, no a Laertes, Laertes. Y él construyó ese momento recordando las palabras de su madre y tratando de ser profundamente amoroso.
For those of you who have seen the play, this exploration turned out in this scene where Manuel plays Polonius, in which he offers advice to his daughter Ophelia. In the play, he offers the advice to Laertes, but in this version, it's to Ophelia. And he constructed his own script by remembering the words that his mom told him to prepare him for life.
Y de estos podría dar 1000 ejemplos de cómo se fueron construyendo las escenas. Esto es solo un ejemplo, ¿no?
And this is just some examples of how the scenes were constructed, but she has many more examples that she could share.
And I'll just say that the way that the character and the actor, that kind of blurring where you see both one, the other, and then both at the same time, reminds me of the best and avant-garde theater. And it reminded me of the Worcester Group's Hamlet, where you're being invited to see the character, the actor, and Richard Burton, or the actors from 1964. And I couldn't believe how smart your production was in that it was getting to that kind of avant-garde space where the audience is being invited to see, 400 years collapse together in a profound way. Yeah. What's next? What are you all working? So this production of Hamlet premiered in 2019. So you've been doing it for 7 years, and I just heard that 2 of the actors got engaged and are going to be married in November. So showmances are real. What is next? Are you doing another project with this company, a different company? Where are you going?
This year, I'm going to have an opening in Madrid. I will do Magda, based on Magda Goebbels, the woman that was the wife of Joseph Goebbels and that killed her 6 children because she believed that life without Nazismo, yes, was not worth living. The children will be puppets, life-size and very, ¿cómo se llama? Muy visible, muy cerca de la realidad. Lifelike. Sí. Y van a ser manejados por actores inmigrantes. Por ejemplo, actores que vienen de culturas que Magda rechaza. Porque nuestra Magda vive en 1945, pero también vive hoy.
This production will have lifelike, very realistic puppets that will be operated by immigrant actors, many of them coming from the places that Magda Goebbels would have despised.
Viviendo hoy, ¿no?
If she lived today. So creating a dialogue between 1940 and 2026.
Yes. Eso se presenta en noviembre y ya tenemos el texto casi cerrado y ya tenemos el casting y en septiembre estoy yendo a ensayar porque he aprendido, gracias al Centro Dramático Nacional de España, que sí puedo ensayar una obra en 6 semanas. En 6 semanas.
The play will premiere in November. The text is almost ready, and rehearsals will begin in September because Chela has learned, thanks to the Dramatic Center of Spain, that she actually can direct a production in 6 weeks.
El trabajo anterior, también en el Centro Dramático Nacional de España, fue La Gaviota de Chekhov, con 10 actores ciegos o con baja visión.
I got this. The previous project with this theater in Spain was a production of Chekhov's The Seagull with 10 actors who are vision impaired?
Sí, ciegos.
Blind actors, yes.
Blind actors and visually impaired.
Actors with limitations. Yes. Sorry.
Una periodista, y esto quiero unirlo a Hamlet, me preguntó algo así como, acabas de hacer Hamlet con actores con síndrome de Down y ahora estás haciendo La Gaviota con actores ciegos. ¿Qué eres, una buena samaritana?
A journalist asked her, so you did Hamlet with actors with Down syndrome and now you're doing The Seagull with blind actors. What are you, a good Samaritan?
Me incomodó su pregunta, pero luego empecé a entenderla y pensé que era una gran oportunidad para explicar el porqué de estos montajes.
Chela was very uncomfortable at the question, but then she realized it was a great opportunity to explain the rationale behind these productions.
Nunca ha sido mi intención hacer una obra inclusiva.
It was never her intention to do an inclusive show.
Era profunda, mi móvil, mi corazón era profundamente artístico.
Her only goal was artistic. It was the thing that was moving her heart.
Me mueve ver otros cuerpos en el escenario.
She's interested in seeing different bodies on stage than the bodies that we usually see.
Por ejemplo, en La Gaviota, una de las actrices que hacía de Nina nació ciega.
In The Seagull, one of the actresses, the one playing Nina, was born blind.
Generalmente las personas que son ciegas no han nacido ciegos, solo 1 o 2%.
Only 2% of people who are blind are born blind. Most of them develop the condition over time.
Pero no era el caso de Belén, quien hacía de Nina.
But Belén playing Nina, this was not her case.
Entonces ella nunca se había visto en un espejo, ni sabía cómo el otro reaccionaba ante sus impulsos o sus movimientos o lo que hacía. No tenía registro de sí misma.
She had never seen herself in a mirror, and she was not aware of how another actor will react to her text or her actions on stage.
Y la forma en la que decía los textos y se movía era profundamente conmovedor y bello y poderoso.
So the way that she performed, the way that she would speak her text and move her body was deeply moving.
Por supuesto, soy consciente de que cuando uno pone en el centro de la escena a personas que siempre están en la periferia, estamos haciendo un acto político.
Of course, she's very aware that when people who are in the peripheries outside of systems of power are on stage, that is a political act.
Y me interesa también, es parte de mi profundo deseo artístico, ver en el la pregunta que me hago es, ¿qué pasa si un actor o un grupo de actores con síndrome de Down que nunca los vemos ocupando el centro del escenario, hacen una obra como Hamlet?
So she's interested in seeing what is that happens when people who have been at the peripheries, who have been excluded historically, take the center And what happens when a group of actors with Down syndrome play a text like Hamlet?
¿Qué le pasa al público también, ¿no?
What happens to the audience as well?
Y esas son las cosas que me interesan.
And those are the things that she's invested right now.
That's fantastic.
Invested in
Y la
right
próxima obra será Noche de Reyes con el mismo elenco en comienzos del 28.
now. El mismo elenco de Hamlet? And the next play is Twelfth Night, and it's going to be played by the same troupe that it's doing Hamlet right now.
Lo que queremos investigar a través de Noche de Reyes son 3 temas sobre todo. En primer lugar, queremos hablar de la relación de los hermanos cuando uno tiene discapacidad y el otro no. En un hogar esto es sumamente complejo, ¿no?
There are 3 topics that they want to explore with this production of Twelfth Night. The first one is how brothers and sisters relate when one of them has a disability and the other does not.
¿Y qué pasa cuando los padres ya no están para mediar esa relación?
And what happens when the parents are not present to mediate this relationship.
En nuestra versión, Viola y Sebastián, uno tiene síndrome de Down y la otra no.
In this version, Viola and Sebastian, one of them will be an actor with Down syndrome and the other one will not.
El otro tema que queremos investigar, que interesa muchísimo al elenco, es el amor en todas sus formas. Y Shakespeare nos da material.
The second topic that they are invested in that is very interesting for the troupe, for the cast, is love in all of its forms. And Shakespeare is an author that gives a lot of material to explore this question.
Y por último, a través de Malvolio queremos investigar sobre el bullying.
And through Malvolio, it's Malvolio?
Malvolio.
And they want to investigate about bullying.
That sounds remarkable and amazing. And what do you think that will be 2027, 28? When?
We started rehearsing for 50 days in a residency, en una residencia. Empezamos a...
I can trick her into English every once in a while.
Estamos encontrando entre las giras, entre gira y gira, espacios que tengo que reunir al menos 10 meses.
10 meses en total.
En total.
So the Hamlet is still touring, and they managed to find some time between tours to do some rehearsal and exploration on 12th Night. And Chela is aiming to rehearse for 10 months among the tours.
Wow, that's great. Just back to your Magda puppet play. Of course, there is a Shakespeare connection with Goebbels, who was obsessed with Merchant of Venice and wrote letters to Hitler about why they should stage Merchant of Venice so that people would know how bad the Jews were. And that,
Thank you.
yes, and that Jessica.
Can you give me a reading?
Yes, absolutely. I'll send you the material. And also Goebbels' idea was that Jessica should be, Shylock's daughter, should be a Christian that kind of accidentally is born to Jews, and that the story is really kind of saving Jessica from the evil Jews.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
I think that'd be good for you.
That's wonderful. Yes.
All right, but from the audience, and this is a question I was going to ask you, so brilliant audience member, what was an unexpected but happy surprise during the production? Hamlet.
Unexpected but happy?
Oh, well,
Or-
I mean,
or
it could be,
unexpected?
yeah, I think the question says but happy, but I think you could answer it however you want.
Ok, la primera que me viene a la mente no es... fue finalmente feliz. Un día llevábamos 2 o 3 meses de ensayo y Octavio, uno de los actores, nos reunió y nos dijo, necesito hablar con todo el equipo.
She's sharing a story that began not very happily, but ended happily. One day after 2 or 3 months of rehearsal, Octavio called everybody in the team and said, I need to talk with you all.
Y nos dijo, no tengo síndrome de Down.
And he said, I don't have Down syndrome.
Y Jaime inmediatamente dijo, yo tampoco.
And Jaime immediately said, me neither.
No teníamos una psicóloga en el grupo porque me habían negado a tenerla. Me había negado yo a tener una psicóloga.
They
Y
didn't
puedo
have
explicar
a
por qué.
psychologist on the team because Chela had refused to have one, to hire one.
Quería que pudiéramos resolver los problemas que surgieran de manera artística o llamar eventualmente para alguna emergencia.
She wanted to be able to solve the problems that would arise of the during the process in an artistic way and only call one if the need arose.
Aquí no hizo falta, por suerte. Cuando yo no sé qué hacer o qué responder, tiendo a no hacer nada.
Luckily, they did not need an intervention, but Chela shares that when she doesn't know what to do, she usually does nothing.
Y funcionó porque los comentarios vinieron del resto del elenco. Por ejemplo, Diana le dijo a Jaime, tú eres el representante de la Sociedad Peruana de Síndrome de Down, ¿ahora qué vas a hacer?
And it was good that she didn't do anything because the cast solved the issue by themselves. It was Cristina?
No, es Diana.
Diana. So Diana approached Jaime and said, so what are you going to do now? You're representing the Peruvian Society of People with Down Syndrome.
Una semana más tarde llegaron los dos de nuevo para decirnos que sí tenían síndrome de Down, pero no tenían que decirlo.
A week later, Jaime and Octavio came back and said that actually they had Down syndrome, but they did not have to say it.
Los actores siguieron confrontándolos. Nuestra obra va a hablar sobre esto. ¿Qué van a hacer? ¿Se van a ir?
The other actors kept confronting them. They were asking, we are doing a play about Down syndrome. What are you going to do? Are you going to leave us?
Y unos días más tarde nos dijeron que estaba bien, que aceptaban su condición y sobre todo, no tanto ahí, pero unos meses más tarde realmente entendieron el valor de ser quienes son y hoy se sienten muy cómodos y felices de manifestarse y de ser activistas de la Sociedad Peruana de Síndrome de Down y de comunicar quiénes son.
A few days later, the actors came back and said that everything was okay and that they had Down syndrome. And Chela then says that this created a process of reflection, of embracing their identity, their condition, and now it's something that they wear with pride, and they are very proud also of their activism and speaking up about their circumstances and people with similar circumstances.
I know it's 8:31. Do you think I can ask one more question from the pile? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, all right. So, because I think this is related. Someone wanted to know, was there a reason why you focused on people with Down syndrome as opposed to people with any other disability?
Jaime Cruz.
Jaime.
Yes, this coffee with him, yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Chela and Sebastian, for translating. It's amazing.
Thank you, Ayanna.
Thank
you so much.
Oh,
Thank
no.
you, Sebastián.
And please do get to Theater for a New Audience. The show closes April 4th. It is astonishing. You will not be disappointed. Thank you again.